This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi everyone, I'm Tanya.
And I'm Talia.
And we are Crimes and Consequences, a true crime podcast. Hey Talia.
Hi Tanya.
How are you today?
Today's great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to tell our listeners all about my new episode.
I just want to welcome everybody back. I'm sure you have an excellent episode.
I do, but before I tell everyone about our episode, there's a few items of business that we have to take care of.
I hate items of business.
I know. I promise I'll be short.
I'm gonna fast forward in a second.
No, you're not.
Okay. Okay.
One is, don't forget to subscribe or follow our podcast on whatever app you're listening to. The other is, I want to tell you guys that after our music at the end of this episode, there's going to be a promo for our friends at Always Time for True Crime. I think it's a podcast that you will enjoy if you enjoy listening to us.
Yeah, and we just do those promos to help support other podcasts.
Yes. So today, the episode that I'm going to share with you is about a crime spree that was committed by two brothers in Wichita, Kansas in December of 2000. There were three different sets of crimes that were committed, all within about a week. The first one that I'm going to tell you about, the victim's name was Andrew Schreiber. He was a 23-year-old assistant baseball coach. He went to a convenience store in Wichita at about 10:45 p.m. on December 7th, 2000. He parked his 1998 Ford Expedition on the side of the building, and he went in to go get the items he was going to purchase. When he came back to his car and got into the driver's seat, a man holding a small black semi-automatic handgun, palm down. So like in the movies, you know how like your palm is down so the gun is sideways? He's holding it like that way.
Oh.
Like
a badass.
Right, like a badass. He came up to the car and he placed the gun's barrel against the glass of the window on the driver's door. And he told Andrew to move over to the passenger seat. Andrew did that, and the man got into the car, into the driver's seat. He then hit Andrew in the back of the head with the gun and told him, get moving. I guess Andrew wasn't moving quick enough for him. Once they were both situated in the car, the man backed the Expedition out of the parking spot and drove away. As he was driving, he asked Andrew if he had any money on him. Andrew said yes, and he handed over his wallet. The man pulled into a nearby alley, and then there was a second man that came up to the front passenger window and pointed another gun at Andrew.
Because one wasn't enough.
And Andrew's so threatening, apparently. The driver told Andrew to let the other guy into the front passenger seat and then told Andrew to get into a middle seat behind the front seat of the Expedition, so like the back seat. As the second man got into the car, he hit Andrew in the head with his gun and told Andrew not to look at him. The two then asked Andrew if he had an ATM card, saying that, somebody that has an Expedition must have a little money. When Andrew said, yes, I have an ATM card, the driver gave Andrew back his wallet and told him to get his ATM card out. Then they drove to a nearby ATM. They pulled the car up beside the ATM machine and rolled the window down in the back so Andrew could put in his PIN and everything. Andrew told them that he had a maximum amount of money that he could withdraw at one time, and it was $300. After Andrew took out the $300, they told him to hand the money over to them and not look at them, which Andrew did. They then told Andrew to hand them the receipt, and he did that too, and they noticed on the receipt that Andrew still had money in the bank. So noticing that he still had money in the bank, they said, we're not done with you yet. The driver then went to a second ATM where Andrew was again allowed to withdraw the maximum of $300. So I think his maximum was set per occurrence as opposed to like per 24 hours. Again, they asked him for the receipt, and Andrew still had money in the bank, so they said, okay, we're going to go to another ATM, which they did. Andrew tried to withdraw $300 at that third ATM, but there was insufficient funds to cover it. So they told him to try to get $200, which processed. Andrew handed them the money and the receipt. When they looked at the receipt that third time, the passenger made a remark that he thought was hilarious. He said, we're leaving Andrew with $8 and some change. Ha ha ha. They just had a good laugh about it. During this entire time that they took Andrew ATM hopping, the passenger had held a gun to Andrew's head, and that also was a dark semi-automatic handgun. Also during this crime, they demanded that Andrew remove any jewelry that he had on them and hand it over, which he did. He had a silver Guess watch that had a blue face on it. When he was taking it off, he turned his head and again was hit on the head with a gun and told not to look at them.
Pistol whipped?
Yes, pistol whipped. The two guys then discussed what they were going to do with Andrew. One of the possibilities that they talked about was dropping Andrew off on a dirt road. After driving on several dirt roads that had like open fields, so they're kind of out in the country in Kansas, the two men decide that the location that they were driving around just wasn't remote enough for what they wanted to do, which is dropping him off. They also discussed how nice the expedition was and how they really wanted one, and they planned to take Andrew's pants and shoes when they dropped him off because it was cold outside. And again, they thought this was hilarious.
Oh, so just to fuck with them.
Yeah, just to be dicks. Eventually, the men took Andrew back into town and stopped at a car wash. I don't know why. They decided to stop at a car wash. They told Andrew to lie face down on the floor in the back, okay? So it's behind the front seats, but in between the front seats and the next row of seats on the floor.
The middle area.
The middle area.
What's the long,
Good
short
God.
middle
Yes.
area, Tanya? Just say the fucking middle area. Lay down the middle area.
At this point, they discussed dropping the second man off at their car. After they left the car wash, they stopped the expedition again and the passenger got out of the car. As he left, he reminded the guy that was driving to be sure to wipe down the expedition. The driver told the passenger to follow him in his car. Andrew then heard another vehicle start up. Both cars were driven for several more miles and then stopped. The driver then told the other guy that they had not arrived in the right spot and that the second man should continue to follow him. They drove for about another 5 to 10 minutes before they stopped again. And at this point, Andrew heard the driver turn off the ignition and then wipe down the surfaces in the expedition. The driver then got out and had a discussion with the second guy about whether they were going to leave Andrew's keys behind. The second man then told Andrew that they were going to put the keys in the street, and they asked Andrew if he had a spare tire, and Andrew said he did. The driver said he was going to slash the tires. Andrew then heard someone fire 3 shots. The driver told Andrew to wait about 20 minutes before he got up from the back of the car. Andrew could hear the guys get into the car, and they both drove away. As he heard the car drive away, Andrew peeked out of a window of the expedition, and he saw the taillights in the dark, leaving the area. Andrew didn't wait the 20 minutes. He decided to get out of the car at that point. He found his keys. He noticed that one of the expedition's tires had 3 holes in it, but he was able to maneuver the car back onto the paved road and drive home. Once they got home, he called 911. When the police responded to his call, Andrew told him that the driver who initially had accosted him was a black male in his 20s, approximately 5'9" or 5'10", with a medium build. And he gave them a description of the clothes they were wearing. He described some facial hair, and he then gave a description of the police of the second guy, just saying that he was a little taller than the driver and he was wearing like a winter jacket because he really didn't get a good look at their faces. So that's the crime that happened to Andrew. The second incident that I'm going to tell you about happened on December 11th, 2000, which is 4 days later. At about 9:40 p.m., 55-year-old cellist and librarian Anne Walenta, she had driven into her driveway. She was a cellist with the Wichita Symphony.
Oh, so she was actually a professional.
She was a professional cellist. And she was getting home from practice. She was driving a 2000 GMC Yukon, so again, like a big SUV. As she turned into one of the side streets near her home, she noticed there was a newer, light-colored Ford or Honda-type vehicle turned behind her, like almost thinking that maybe they were following her. The car continued to follow her as she turned onto her street, which was a dead end at a cul-de-sac. As she was driving closer to her house, she noticed the car had stopped in front of a home directly south of hers. And when she pulled into the driveway, she saw a black male get out of the front passenger side and begin walking toward her car. As he approached the driver's side, he said to Ann that he needed some help. Ann rolled down her window just a few inches, and at that point, the guy immediately pointed a handgun through the window, palm down, and it was pointed at her head. She tried to start her Yukon, but the starter made that grinding sound because the engine was already on, but Ann panicked. The guy then told Ann not to move the Yukon, but she shifted into reverse anyway, and when she did, he shot at her. After she'd been shot, Ann's across the street neighbor, whose name was Anna Kelly, and so that we don't confuse Anna with Ann, I'm going to call the neighbor Kelly. She heard a car horn honking. When she looked outside, she realized the honking was coming from Ann's Yukon and that the Yukon's lights were flashing. When Kelly opened her front door, Ann began calling to her for help. Kelly's husband called the police as Kelly ran to Ann's car. The Yukon was still running. Its driver's window had shattered, and Ann was slumped backwards in the driver's seat. While waiting for the police to arrive, Ann told Kelly she'd been shot by a black man with wiry hair. She also said that a light-colored car had followed her onto the street. Once Ann was transported to the hospital, she provided a somewhat more detailed description of the gunman, although it varied a little bit. I won't bore you with it, but I just let you know that it was very similar to the description that Andrew had given to the police.
I'm surprised he shot her.
I know. He shot her 3 times, so she had 3 different gunshot wounds. One of the bullets severed her spinal cord, which rendered her paraplegic. But sadly, as she began recovering during her stay at the hospital and was scheduled to be transferred to a rehab facility, on January 2nd, Ann suffered a pulmonary embolus, which is a blood clot, due to complications of her paralysis, and she passed away.
I always think they don't want to shoot you. They don't really want to shoot you.
Yeah, I don't know, did he panic because she was backing out? I don't know. It's a weird crime because was he trying to carjack her? Was he trying to rob her? What were they going to do next? Go in her house? I don't know. Did they just want the car?
You're the one with the answers.
I know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they were trying to do, but I know they murdered Ann. The third incident I'm going to tell you about began on December 14th, 2000, at the home shared by 3 college friends. There was Aaron, who was 29, and he was studying to become a priest. Brad, who was 27 and was a financial analyst. And Jason, who was 26. Jason was a science teacher and a coach at a local high school in Wichita. That night, Jason's girlfriend, Holly, who was 25, and she was also a school teacher, she was with Jason at the house. She also had her pet schnauzer, whose name was Nikki, with her, Nikki. Also at the house was a friend of Aaron's, and if you remember, Aaron was studying to be a priest. His friend was Heather. She was 25 and a graduate student at Wichita State University. She worked as a church preschool teacher, and she was also Aaron's ex-girlfriend. So there are 5 people in this house, okay? There's Aaron, Brad, Jason, Holly, and Heather. As Holly and Jason are getting ready for bed at about 10:30 p.m., Holly pulled her hair back and fastened it with a plastic clip. Jason turned off the front porch light. He made sure the front door was locked and then went to bed. Holly's dog was in Jason's bedroom with both of them. Nikki, yes. A few minutes later, the porch light came back on. Holly heard Aaron talking to someone when he went to go check it out. It was a voice she didn't recognize. Then Jason's bedroom door burst open, and a tall black man with a gun came through the doorway. Jason screamed as the gunman yanked the covers off the bed. A second black man holding on to Aaron by his shirt came into the room and pushed Aaron onto the bed with Holly and Jason. That man was also armed. The 2 intruders asked if anyone else was in the house, and they were told that Brad was downstairs. So one of the guys went down to get Brad while the others stayed in the bedroom with Holly, Jason, and Aaron.
Nobody mentioned Heather?
Not yet. No, nobody mentioned Heather at that point. The intruder who stayed demanded to know if there was anyone else in the house, saying, "Don't lie, don't lie." Aaron eventually told him that Heather was in the other upstairs bedroom. When the intruder who had gone downstairs to get Brad came back up, he was carrying a golf club, and he ordered Brad onto the floor at the foot of the bed. One of the intruders retrieved Heather from the other bedroom and brought her into the room and told her to get on the floor in Jason's bedroom as well. So everyone is in this bedroom together now. The intruders demanded to know where the phones in the house were and whether there was a safe. One of them was shouting, "Where's the safe? A house this fucking nice, there's gotta be a safe."
It's filled with 525-year-olds.
I know, right? They're all in their 20s. Who's got money, right?
A safe?
No. And they're school teachers, for God's sake, right?
They're still taking money from their parents.
Honestly. Probably. I mean, one's a student. I mean, Heather was a graduate student. It's not like these people have any money. So one of the intruders goes around the house looking, ransacking the house, and the other guys stood over watching the 5 friends. At one point, one of the intruders said that someone needs to, quote, shut up Holly's dog or he was going to shoot it. Eventually, the dog quieted down, Nikki. They then demanded to know who among Heather, Aaron, Brad, Jason, and Holly had any money on them. When none of them said they had any cash on them, they then said, okay, who has an ATM card? Each of them raised their hands, and the intruder asked how much money that they had in their bank accounts. After they got this information, the 2 intruders had a little whispered discussion amongst themselves. At that point, they then told all 5 to remove all their clothes.
All their clothes?
All their clothes.
They're butt naked?
They're butt naked.
That's awkward.
Oh, I know. The intruders then pulled all of the clothes out of the closet in Jason's bedroom and ordered the 5 into the closet and told them to sit down. They were threatened that they weren't allowed to talk to one another. So these 5 kids are sitting in the closet. The intruders are outside, and they start to talk about wanting to watch 2 women engage in sex acts. They then ordered Holly and Heather to go out to the bar area outside of Jason's bedroom, like there was a wet bar area. They then told the women to, quote, suck that pussy.
Oh,
end
Jesus
quote.
Christ.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I know, right? What would you do in this situation? I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Holly and Heather complied.
There you go.
Holly performed oral sex on Heather, and then Heather performed oral sex on Holly. The intruders also demanded that they use fingers on one another, and they did. While this is going on, both of the intruders watched and made further comments, telling the women again to suck that pussy and do it deeper.
I'm kind of uncomfortable with you saying this.
I know.
I'm
sorry. I'm sorry. I know.
It's just totally not like you to sit there across from me. I know. It's awkward and uncomfortable.
This is not language I usually use. When Heather was performing oral sex on Holly, one of the intruders even hit Holly's knee so that he could get a better look of what was happening. After, I guess they got enough of an eyeful, the intruders brought each of the 3 male victims out to the bar area one at a time and ordered each of them to have sex with Holly. Although one of the intruders had thrown a shirt or some other type of clothing over Holly's face, she was still able to see her feet, and she could distinguish between her 3 friends. The first one to have sex with her was Brad, the second was Jason, and the third was Aaron. At some point, Heather was moved from being beside Holly while this is all going on because they're having sex with Holly to being put back in the closet. Neither Brad nor Jason was able to achieve an erection. The intruders made comments about popping someone's ass if the absence of an erection prevented them from fulfilling their demands. Aaron initially defied the intruders, saying, "No, I don't want to do this." One of the intruders then became angry and hit Aaron on the back of the head with the golf club.
Oh, God.
Aaron then tried to comply by having sex with Holly.
I'm just thinking that would hurt.
That would hurt like hell. After the 3 men are done with Holly, the intruders told her to get back into the closet, and they brought Heather from the closet out into the bar area. They then commanded Aaron, Jason, and Brad, in that order, to have sex with Heather. During these events, the intruders threatened to shoot if one of the men didn't achieve an erection. Holly heard one of them say words to the effect of, "It's 11:53, somebody better get their dick hard, get a hard on." Holly heard Heather moaning in pain when each of the 3 men were outside the closet. When Aaron was in the bar area with Heather, Holly heard Aaron say again that he didn't want to do what he was being ordered to do. Talia, before I can tell you what happens next, we're going to have to take a break.
Hey everyone, if you go to our website, tntcrimes.com, you can find full unreleased episodes available for individual purchase. You can also join our membership where you get unlimited access to all of our unreleased episodes, early releases, mini episodes, and so many other awesome things. So go to tntcrimes.com. And thanks again for all your support.
By this time, and it's about midnight, Holly had seen enough of the two intruders that she was able to differentiate between them. The one she referred to as the first was a taller, thinner black man who was wearing an orange and black sweater with the word FUBU on it. That's Jonathan Carr. The intruder that Holly referred to as the second was a stockier man, and he was wearing a black leather coat. That was Reginald Carr. So instead of talking about intruders and things from now on, I'm just going to tell you by their names. After the coerced victim-on-victim sex acts, Reginald took Brad to a series of ATM machines. Before they could leave, there was a problem finding car keys, which caused one of the brothers, not sure who, to say that someone better find his or her fucking keys or someone was going to be shot. Can you imagine trying to look for your keys in a panic like this?
I can't even find my keys when I'm calm.
Right, exactly. When Brad was gone with Reginald, Jonathan ordered Holly out of the closet. He ordered her to get on all fours and get herself, quote, wet. To comply, Holly placed her fingers in her vagina. The intruder then vaginally raped her from behind. During the rape, Holly was able to see that the intruder had laid a small silver handgun on the floor. The gun was about 4 inches to 5 inches long, and it wasn't a revolver, so it had a clip in it. The other gun that Holly had seen that night was black. So these are different guns than I think our previous victims have seen. When Jonathan was done raping Holly, he returned her to the closet and ordered Heather to come out, and he raped or attempted to rape her. Because no one's sure exactly what happened to her because she's out of their eyesight. From inside the closet, Holly, Jason, and Aaron could hear Heather moaning in pain. Aaron in particular was crying, saying that, quote, this shouldn't happen this way. Heather was never put back into the closet. Brad and Reginald were away from the home about 30 minutes. When Reginald came back, he then took Jason to 2 ATMs. They were gone about 20 minutes. When Reginald came back, there was a discussion between him and his brother about which of the remaining victims would leave next. Holly said she would go. Just to let you know, Jason and Brad both came back with the brothers. Holly got out of the closet. She put on a white sweatshirt and took her ATM card out of her purse. Reginald went out the front door with her and told her to get into the driver's side of Jason's silver Dodge Dakota pickup. Reginald sat slouched back in the corner of the passenger seat with what Holly believed to be a gun in his hand. At the first bank they went to, Holly withdrew $350, which was the maximum amount allowed in one withdrawal. She then unsuccessfully attempted a $200 withdrawal, but was able to take out $150. This just exhausted the available money she had. When she leaned out of the truck to take the cash out of the machine, Reginald groped her vagina with his gloved hand. At one point during this trip, Holly asked Reginald if he was going to shoot her and the other victims. He told her no. She then asked him if he promised not to shoot them. And he said, yeah, I'm not going to shoot you. Also during the trip to the ATM, Reginald asked Holly if Jonathan, his brother, had had intercourse with her. When Holly said he had, Reginald wanted to know if she enjoyed it.
Really?
Really? To appease him, Holly said yes.
That'd be hard,
wouldn't it?
To say.
Reginald also asked her if she had ever had sex with a black man and if it was better with Jonathan than with her boyfriend. Like, really?
Shut the hell up.
Oh yeah, I had a great time. When Holly and Reginald were walking back into the house, he told her it was too bad they hadn't met under other circumstances because she was kind of cute and they would have had dated.
I just want to bitch slap him.
Honestly.
So hard. Front-hand backhand.
I know. Front-hand backhand. She replied, kind of, yeah. And then he asked, what does that mean? And she responded that she really wasn't having a good time. I mean, obviously, right?
Apparently not obvious.
Damn, Reginald, you idiot. I know. When Holly was returned to the closet, she told Aaron, Brad, and Jason, quote, I think we're all going to be okay. I asked him, and he said he's not going to shoot us, end quote. Aaron was the next to leave the home with Reginald. Holly thought Aaron put on pants and a shirt before they left. When Aaron was gone, Jonathan opened the closet door and offered the remaining victims a glass of whiskey.
I'd probably do it.
They all said, no, I know, I'd probably do it too. I'm thinking, damn, I need a fucking drink. Holly then heard someone handling a popcorn tin in a change jar, like in another room. She heard Jonathan ask Heather, who was outside of the closet at this time, whose is this? Heather said she didn't know, but it was probably Holly's. He then asked which of the male victims was Holly's boyfriend, and Heather said it was Jason. She identified Jason. Jonathan then opened the closet door and asked for Jason. When Jason identified himself, Jonathan asked him if the item that had been found was the only one of its kind. Jason said yes. The item they were talking about was an engagement ring Jason had bought for Holly but hadn't given to her yet. When Aaron returned with Reginald told Holly to leave the closet and pushed her into the dining room by jabbing her in the back with something she assumed was a gun. He said, quote, don't worry, I'm not going to shoot you yet, end quote. Oh. Reginald then made Holly get down on all fours and vaginally raped her from behind. He then grabbed her, turned her around, ejaculated into her mouth, and ordered her to swallow.
Oh, okay.
Holly was able to see Reginald's face at this point. Holly then went into the bathroom, but when she opened the bathroom door, she saw Jonathan raping Heather from behind. Heather was on all fours, and Jonathan was on his knees. The bathroom light was on, and because of that, she was able to see Jonathan's face. Jonathan then shut the door, telling Holly he wasn't finished yet. Holly waited outside the bathroom door for a few minutes and then opened it again. Jonathan then told Holly to get on all fours. She complied, and he again vaginally raped her. After he stopped, Holly heard what sounded like a condom being removed, and then the toilet flushed. Holly was then told to get back to the bar area where Heather was already sitting. The 3 male victims were still in the closet at this point in Jason's bedroom. The women were cold. They told the intruders they were cold, and Holly was able to put on a sweater. The 2 brothers were talking to each other, and then Reginald went downstairs. When he came back up, Holly heard him say something about a big screen television. Brad had a big screen television in his downstairs bedroom. Holly was able to get a better look at Reginald at this time. She saw his face. She noted that his hair was close to his head and not sticking out like the other brothers, so she's able to identify them. At some point, the brothers are wiping down various surfaces, using a cleaning solution and things, and when they were finished doing that, they took all 5 of the victims to the garage. Holly and Heather were wearing nothing but sweaters. Aaron was still wearing pants and a shirt. Brad and Jason were naked. Holly and Heather were told to get into the trunk of Aaron's beige Honda Civic. The brothers then tried to get all 3 of the men into the trunk also, but they couldn't all fit.
They tried to get 5 of them in the trunk?
Yes. Can you believe that? I mean, it's a Civic.
That's crazy.
That's a compact car. Holly and Heather were then put into the back seat of the Honda, and the men were put into the trunk.
That's still a tight fit.
Yes, it is. Holly was then told to get out of the Civic and get into the passenger side of Jason's truck. After some discussion between the brothers, as Reginald was taking Holly to the truck, Jonathan said, quote, if she gives you any trouble, let me know and we'll take care of that, end quote. Jonathan drove away from the home first in the Civic, and Reginald followed him driving the truck. As Holly rode with Reginald, she asked him when they were going. He said they were going somewhere to drop everyone off, away from their cars and home. Holly noted that the time in the truck clock was 2:07 a.m. The Honda in the truck drove to a soccer field, and Reginald and Jonathan got out of the cars. Holly was ordered to get into the driver's seat of the Civic. The brothers talked to each other for a couple of minutes, and then the 3 male victims were brought out of the trunk and made to kneel in front of the Civic. At this point, Holly, who's in the Civic with Heather, said to Heather, "Oh my God, they're going to shoot us." She and Heather were then directed to get out of the car and told to kneel by the guys. Holly knelt by Jason and Heather knelt by Aaron. Holly saw that the brothers were standing fairly close together behind them, and then she heard a shot, and everyone started screaming. Aaron was pleading, "Please no," and he used the word "sir." Holly heard 3 more shots. Holly then felt an impact on the back of her head, and everything went gray. She remained kneeling, but she was kicked over and fell forward. She heard talking, heard one of the truck doors shut, heard its engine start, and then felt another impact. She thought she'd been run over, which they would later discover she was. She heard the truck drive away after pausing for a moment, and she waited until she could no longer hear it before she looked to see if the intruders in the truck were gone. She saw the truck go south, and when its lights disappeared, she got up and began checking to see if any of the other 4 victims were still alive. She looked at Jason first. She rolled him over and saw blood coming out of one of his eyes. She took her sweater off and tied it around Jason's head to try to stop the bleeding. Without the sweater, she's nude. After looking at the others, she decided she needed to go get help. Looking for the nearest safe place, she spotted a house in the distance with white Christmas lights. Now naked and barefoot, she ran more than a mile through the snow, crossing several fences, some with barbed wire, to get to that house. It was approximately 2:15. Steve Johnson and his wife heard someone pounding loudly on their front door and ringing the doorbell. Steve looked outside and saw a naked woman at his door. He opened the door, and the woman, who is Holly, told him she and 4 friends had been abducted, taken to a nearby field, and shot. Holly had blood on her back and her hair was matted as a result of some type of wound. The Johnsons let Holly inside, gave her blankets, and called 911. The emergency dispatch received the 911 call at 2:37 a.m. Steve was on the phone with 911, and he was trying to tell them everything Holly was telling him, but he ultimately gave the phone to Holly because she was just saying things too fast for him to be able to pass on. Holly was afraid she wasn't going to survive, and she wanted the police to know everything that she knew about the crimes. Holly told 911 everything that happened. Holly then gave a description of her attackers to the dispatch. When emergency vehicles showed up at the Johnson's house, Holly was taken to a local hospital, and as she was being treated, officers obtained additional information from her, which included a more detailed description of the brothers. Holly had suffered a gunshot wound to the back of her head. The impact fractured her skull, but the bullet didn't penetrate into her brain, apparently because it had been deflected by the plastic hair clip she had put into her hair before going to bed.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? She also had other injuries, including bruises to her face and frostbite to her feet. When Holly was transported and being treated at the hospital, police found Aaron's Honda Civic and the bodies of the 4 other victims laying in a road at the snow-covered soccer field where they had been shot. Sheriff's Deputy Matthew Lynch was the first one on the scene. He detected no pulse in Heather. Aaron appeared to be attempting to breathe, as did Brad. Jason didn't appear to be breathing and had no pulse. Deputy Lynch advised dispatch that there were 4 code blue victims, meaning each was at least in cardiac arrest. EMS arrived on the scene about 2:45.
Oh, so it had already been 35, 40 minutes.
Right?
But they're in the cold.
That's true. They're in the cold. Police ended up going back to the house that the guys had lived at, and they collected a bunch of evidence. They noticed the house had been completely ransacked. Also at the scene where the 4 had been shot, they found bullet casings. They found the clip from Holly's hair, ATM receipts in the Honda Civic. There was just a ton of evidence that they were able to collect. Also back at the house, they found Nikki, Holly's dog.
Don't.
And I'm sorry, don't. I have to tell you.
I can see it in your face.
I know.
Do not tell me. I don't want to hear that Nikki died.
Nikki was dead. They believe that she was probably beaten to death with the golf club.
Oh my God. That's just the icing on the goddamn cake, Tanya.
I know, and she's just a little schnauzer. It's not like she was this big threatening dog. Not that a big dog deserves something like that, but yeah, it was unnecessary.
That just stings even more.
After these crimes were committed, they really did nothing to help themselves. The Wichita police had released their descriptions based on what Holly had said, and there was descriptions being broadcast on the news. Reginald and Jonathan ended up being identified from the story on the news by friends and family, and they were eventually arrested. And I have to tell you at this point that the 4 friends that were shot, they all did not survive. The only survivor to that crime was Holly.
Which is how you know all the facts.
Yes, because she was able to tell this horrendous story. Reginald and his brother Jonathan were jointly charged, tried, and convicted. They were charged with 58 counts of various crimes ranging from kidnapping, aggravated robbery, criminal damage to property, to first-degree murder. They included the crimes that the brothers had committed against Andrew, who was the first story that I told you, and also against Anne. They lumped all these crimes together in this trial. The jury convicted both of them, and they had separate sentencing proceedings. They both ended up being sentenced to death. Weirdly enough, besides the death penalty, they were also sentenced for Anne's felony murder, which was, the sentence was a hard 20 life sentence, which I don't know why they're adding more, but they're adding more to their life sentence.
Just in case, like in appeals.
Oh, that's true.
Gets overturned.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, you're right. So both these brothers are sitting on death row in Kansas. They have tried to appeal their convictions and sentencing, but it hasn't been overturned.
Well, I'm very sad now, Tanya. Legitimately sad.
This was just a senseless, stupid crime. All the victims were chosen at random. It was just crimes of opportunity, I guess. They just decided to pick on the house.
And for what? They didn't even end up with more than, at the maximum, a couple $1,000s.
Right, a couple $1,000s, an engagement ring that they ended up stealing.
Pawning for nothing, I'm assuming.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, it was such a senseless crime.
Well, you gave me another 10 on the pisser scale.
Yeah, this one was bad. I feel extremely bad for Holly. Can you imagine, like, the survivor guilt she must feel? All because she put a damn clip in her hair?
It reminds me of Killing Around the Campfire, episode 28.
Yes.
Only one teen survived, and she felt tremendous guilt her whole life.
Oh, I would. You know, why did I survive as opposed to anybody else? Just very sad. So, well, thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode. If you haven't subscribed or followed yet, please do so on the podcast app you're listening to us right now.
Don't forget to check out our promo at the end of our music for
Always Time for True Crime.
And if you want more information on this case, you can go to our website, which is tntcrimes.com. You can also go to Instagram, TNT Crimes Podcast. Don't go to Twitter.
Facebook is good too.
Facebook's a good one.
Yes, Facebook's a good one.
TNT Crimes Podcast. And if you want to become a member, you can get episodes like this. For those that are members, you can go to patreon.com/TNT Crimes and check it out. We'd love to have you there. You can join us for our live episodes. They are so much fun. I like to have my wine or beer or whatever's in front of me.
They are fun. They are fun. I like getting the live feedback from people. It's kind of fun. So anyway.
That's it, right?
That's it. So stay tuned for the promo from Always Time for True Crime, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, this is Julia from Always Time for True Crime. Every week, I get into a new case about murder, missing persons, and serial killers. My podcast is all about the lesser-known cases. So, if you're looking for something beyond Ted Bundy or JonBenet Ramsey, head on over to Always Time for True Crime for some new true crime stories. You can listen to Always Time for True Crime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, Stitcher, and more. You can listen to Always Time for True Crime on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Castbox, Stitcher, and more. Hi guys, this is Julia, the host of Always Time for True Crime. Each week, I cover a different case about murder, missing persons, or serial killers. My podcast strives to bring attention to lesser-known cases and give you guys some new true crime stories.